All right, what's up, everyone? Sam here, Wall Street Mastermind, and today I have another client interview for you guys. We're talking to Brandon today, and Brandon's an interesting story. Brandon is actually lateraling from, or actually, he's was working as an auditor at KPMG, but we just helped him successfully lateral to a boutique investment bank. And so, I wanted to bring him on here to talk to you guys, just because, honestly, obviously, most of you are probably trying to break into banking, say out of undergrad or maybe from business school, because those are the two most common ways. And, for a lot of people, if they're not able to get in from undergrad and they can't afford to go to business school, then they feel like they have no other way into banking. But Brandon is living proof that it can be done, and so for those of you who might one day be in his situation, definitely want to get him on here to talk about how he was able to do that. So, Brandon, thanks for being here with us.
No, thank you for having me, Sam.
Yeah, man. Excited to chat. Congratulations on the offer. First of all,
Thank you.
has it sunk in yet how amazing your accomplishment is?
Absolutely, it's starting to sink in here, and definitely wouldn't have been possible without all the tips and all the ongoing support from you. And yeah, I mean, going from an auditor to an investment banker without any steps in between, like transaction services, and basically, doubling my compensation. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, man. That is amazing. I'm super happy for you. I mean, like I said, statistically, I always tell people, like a lot of times I tell people like, hey, you should try to get in as an undergrad. If you don't, you probably gotta, work for a couple years, at least 2 years, uh, apply and get into a top 20 MBA program, which in and of itself is a difficult thing to do. And then if you do that, you got to pay, 200 grand probably for 2 years at least. And then also not be able to work during that time, and just to have another crack at this. Right. And by even then, it's not a guarantee you're going to get the job. So, for someone like you breaking in after undergrad without having to go back to business school, that's definitely an exceptional accomplishment. So you should be very proud of yourself. Um,
Appreciate it. Yes, thank you.
yeah, man. And by the way, before we dive in, like, let's just tell everyone, like, where did you get offers from, by the way?
So, basically, I got two offers, two boutique investment banks in Florida. One called Antarctica Advisors, and another called Hague Partners. Antarctica focuses specifically on seafood M&A, and Hague Partners focuses on buy and sell side car dealership M&A.
Yep. Yep. Got it. Okay. Very cool. And which one are you gonna be going to?
I accepted the offer at Hague Partners to work as an investment banking analyst focused on car dealerships.
Awesome, man. And that's like a perfect fit for you because of your background and your interests, right?
Absolutely. I never had an investment banking internship in college, but the closest internship to my interests was at a car dealership, at a luxury car dealership in Miami, and I worked in the finance and the accounting department. So it worked out as a perfect fit to break into one of the few car dealership focused investment banks
Yeah.
in the country.
Yeah, and you're one of those guys that's super into cars as well, right? Like,
Yeah,
want
oh yeah, I love cars.
to tell everyone what your aspirational dream is one day?
Yeah, sure. My dream is to own a group of dealerships, and hopefully have a whole array of different manufacturers that I'll own, and it'll be a great lasting accomplishment.
Yeah, man. I never knew how lucrative owning car dealerships were until you told me, but Now,
Yep, that's sure one of the easiest ways to make 8 figures a year. And I noticed working at a luxury car dealership where the owners do make more than 8 figures a year. You don't have to work all that hard. Once you're the owner, you get a senior vice president and a CFO and a general manager of operations to run the business for you, and you work yourself a nice 40, 45 hours a week, and you make more money than you know what to do with.
yeah, I think the hard work comes, before that in terms of getting to that position. But
Absolutely.
I'm sure once you get there, then it's all gravy. But
Yep, pretty much.
awesome, man. Well, look, why don't we do this? Can you take us back to the beginning? Let's go all the way back to. Let's start from like freshman year of college, right? Because I always like to kind of like talk to people about the journey that you went on, because a lot of people out there who are listening, they might be going through a similar journey, or maybe trying to overcome similar obstacles right now. And so you could very much be an inspiration to some of these people. So you started out at the University of Arizona originally, right?
Yes, I did. So I actually switched high schools after my junior year of high school, from a private high school to a public high school. And the GPA rating system was different. It went from a 4.0 system to a 5.0 system. So I had a 3.5 out of 4 at the private school, to then having a 3.5 out of 5 at the public school. They didn't do any conversion. So that really ruined my chances of getting into some of the schools that I really wanted to go to, which, my number one choice was the University of Miami, where I transferred to after my freshman year at Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And, then I got to the University of Miami and I started studying economics. And, it was interesting and whatever, but, I kind of wasn't my favorite subject. So then I switched majors to management, and quickly learned that, management is, helpful, but, there's no numbers involved. It's not super analytical. And, that's kind of how I am. I'm just a very analytical person. So then I added finance as my second major in my junior year of college. I didn't really have any relevant experience in finance until I worked in the finance and accounting department at the Collection, which is a luxury car dealership in Miami. It's one of the top dealerships in the country. And so that was my first experience in finance. And my mentor there, who was the CFO at the time, he really pushed me to go back for a master's degree. So right after I finished my bachelor's in finance and management, I went for a master of accounting with a concentration in corporate finance. And during that program, that's when I had access to all the different Big Four recruiters and all the top 20 accounting firm recruiters. And I ended up landing a job my first month in the master's program at KPMG in the audit practice. Once again, with no internship experience prior, so I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into. But I knew that having a Big Four name on my resume would only do me good, considering the biggest name on my resume was a car dealership in their finance and accounting department. So I knew that I needed a good name on my resume if I wanted a chance to break into banking, and I knew that was really the ultimate goal. So I was just, working towards that. And once I started working, I knew right away that it wasn't for me. And that's pretty much when I reached out to you.
Yeah. So I want to dive into that a little more. So you first, I know you got interested in banking kind of late, right? But
Right.
You first became interested in banking while you were still in your undergrad, right?
Yes. And I tried to break in on my own. I had no success. My
Was that
grades
junior
were,
year or senior year, or did you recruit for the summer internship or just for full time?
so I recruited for a summer internship and full time, but I didn't start applying for summer internships until I want to say at least midway through my junior year for the senior year summer. And that was with, basically no internship experience at all, other than at my family's insurance agency.
Yeah.
So that's a very small business, 10 people. So nobody knows what that was. This was before the car dealership was on my resume. So I didn't get any of the finance internships. I tried investment banking. I tried at some banks. I tried sales and trading at other banks. My undergrad GPA wasn't outstanding. It was like a 3.25. So it was really,
and it
it's
actually,
really
you had to work hard to raise it to that level, right? Like you started off on the wrong foot, I think, if I remember.
Yeah. So my first year at the University of Miami, I had a really bad knee injury and got sick at the end of the semester, and I finished with a 1.6. So I ended up getting, dean's list and provost lists for like 3 or 4 years consecutively after that, just to pull that number up to the 3.25.
Yeah.
So it was a real struggle, especially for banks that, required transcripts. It was hard to really explain what happened that first semester. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody cared.
Dude, let me just pause you there for a second. I mean, we just need to pause and appreciate how far you've come, starting out with a 1.6 GPA to now you're, about to become an investment banker. I mean, like, that's one of those stories that, people read online. Like I said, is freaking inspirational, right? I mean, I talk to students who struggle with their GPA all the time. And, but the thing is, they don't, a lot of them, they struggle and then they don't do anything about it to overcome that, right? Or to get better or bring their GPA up to a respectable level. And, but you did that. So that's freaking amazing.
Thank you.
And then, so GPA obviously hurt you. Going to University of Miami is not really a target school, right?
Right. Also a downfall.
Were there any banks that recruited there?
Yeah, there were a couple. Raymond James, TD Securities. Those were two of the ones that were actually on campus. Citi would come to do informational sessions, but they didn't recruit at the career fair. And we also had, some of the bigger banks, JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, they would come and do these informational sessions. But really the only way that you were going to get it into one of those types of banks that coming out of the University of Miami is if you had a 3.75 or higher.
Yeah.
And
some of those banks, they're not recruiting for front office investment banking either, right? Like, I think I remember you said that TD, for example, they go there to recruit for credit, but not for investment banking.
Yes. So TD only recruited for credit. Raymond James did recruit for credit, wealth management, investment banking, equity research. Goldman and JP Morgan and Citi, they all did their informational sessions on campus, but it wasn't a recruiting for anything. It was just really informational sessions. But if you were good enough, like 3.75 or above, and you started early enough, freshman or sophomore year, and you networked hard, also like RBC, capital markets, you could get into any group that you wanted out of University of Miami, but you had to start really early and you had to have at least a 3.7, 3.75 to even have a chance. And that wasn't even a guarantee.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think starting early, that's like pretty much the way recruiting has been trending. That's like a prerequisite no matter where you go to school now, I feel like. But
yep.
But okay, so then you sent out a bunch of applications. Right? Like, do you remember roughly how many applications you sent out?
Oh yeah, on my own, I sent out at least 100. But my problem was I'd never networked with anybody. And from
so
those 100,
how many positive responses did you get?
0.
Wow.
I only got a couple rejection emails. The rest, they never even responded.
It's as if you're just throwing your resume into a black hole, never to be seen, basically.
Oh, pretty much. Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Yep. Okay, so that failed, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to go do a master's, right?
Yep.
But then I think you sent out what, another dozen applications after doing a summer intensive for your master's. Is that right?
I did, yeah. So then I sent out another dozen to a lot of middle market banks, Cohen, Jeffries, Piper Jaffray.
And
I
what,
sent
what
them
was the rationale there? Was it that like, hey, maybe now that I have this master's of accounting thing on my resume, maybe I'll have a better chance, or?
pretty much, yeah. It was just like, hey, I just finished this summer intensive. My GPA was a 3.75 coming out of the summer intensive, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, why not give this like one more shot? I even tried DE Shaw. I tried a couple bulge brackets, and once again, the best I got was sorry. Although your skill set and GPA is, very high, and your skill set seems like it would be a good fit somewhere, it just doesn't seem like it would be a good fit for investment banking.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So,
I was just like, okay, well, let me let me just do what I can. And I went to the University of Miami Accounting Career Fair, and that's kind of where I got my job at KPMG, along with I went to some Beta Alpha Psi events, which is a finance and accounting honor society. So I went there and I networked with some people at the Big Four, and between that networking and attending the career fair, that's how I landed the job.
yeah. So would you say like the reason you weren't able to succeed with all these applications back then is, one, obviously your resume wasn't good enough, partially because you didn't have enough relevant experience, but partially probably also just how you formatted your resume. Even though I'm sure you put a lot of work into it, and then secondly, just the lack of knowledge around how to network effectively, basically.
Yeah, all of the above. My resume was, night and day from before we started working till after we, perfected it 100 times. Looking back on it, I never would have got the job if we didn't make the resume look the way that it did. I thought it looked good, but it turns out that it looked more like a joke than anything. And just the lack of experience and lack of ability to talk in detail about some of the concepts that investment bankers want to talk about on the phone, and just having no idea of the kind of questions that they were going to ask and how they were going to double click on everything to make sure that you really did the things that you were saying that you were doing on your resume. Those were all things that, I just wouldn't have known had we started working together.
Yeah, and you bring up a really interesting point, which is like, hey, you thought your resume was pretty good. Obviously, we see that with clients or potential clients all the time, right? Not just with their resume, but with their interview answers or their networking skills or just anything that they're doing in general. The human tendency or bias is to naturally think that what they've done already is pretty good, right? Because obviously, you're already putting your best foot forward. It's not like for a lack of effort. You already gave it your best shot, and that was what you came up with. So, of course, most of the time, you don't know what you don't know, and there's going to be a blind spot when it comes to evaluating, the quality of your own work, right? And
For
that's
sure.
and that's where like having extra set of eyes, especially from someone who's more of an expert in this area, can really help, because they can help you spot a lot of things that you couldn't think of on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. I didn't know any investment bankers. My family, were from Pennsylvania, but not Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. And, where we're from, it's Allentown, Pennsylvania. And, there are no investment banking offices there. So my family didn't know a single investment banker. They didn't even understand what I was trying to become. They just knew about, like wealth management and financial advisors, and they knew about Wall Street, but they really didn't know, what the different avenues on Wall Street were. So, we didn't have anybody who could even look at my resume to tell me that it wasn't good.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's fair, man. I think a lot of people struggle with that. You're definitely not alone there. Um, so okay, and then you decided to do a master's in accounting because your mentor told you you get a master's. Why did you go with a master's in accounting as opposed to like say a master's in finance, for example?
Right. So I didn't want to move again. So I wanted to stay in Miami, and the master's in finance is okay, but it's not great. Uh, I heard about one person out of a group of like 60 or 70 at the University of Miami Master of Finance who broke into SunTrust.
Mm-hmm.
And he got in as an investment banking analyst by networking. And I had spoke with him on the phone in my networking efforts to break into banking. And he said that was not the only place he applied. He said he would network with hundreds of people, and that was just the one offer that he got. So from speaking with some other people that were in the Masters of Finance, I knew that I really didn't have a shot of getting in, or if any, a very small percentage. But what I did know is that if I did the Master of Accounting, that, it's one of the top Master of Accounting programs in the country. And we, at the University of Miami, have an accounting career fair specifically for accounting majors.
Mm-hmm.
So all the top 25 accounting companies or accounting firms were at this career fair, and I had the chance to network with all of them, and I knew that the Big Four hired a handful into audit and a handful into tax, and one or two into advisory, but not deal advisory, more risk advisory and IT advisory. So I kind of looked at those options, and I figured that audit was my best chance to eventually break into banking. So I decided to pursue the audit track at a Big Four firm.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah, and the one guy at the Masters in Finance program in Miami that got an offer from SunTrust, I remember when you first told me about it, like his offer then fell through in the end, so he didn't even get it, right?
Yeah, I think that it did fall through, and then he wound up going to work for another bank, but one with not as good a reputation. I forget the name right now, but yeah, it wasn't, the odds were just stacked against me going into the Masters of Finance. So I knew that, I could at least secure a full-time job at a reputable company doing the Master of Accounting.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a good takeaway for the audience too, which like, I'm certainly not telling people like, hey, getting a master's of accounting is like a, typical route to take to get into banking or anything like that. In fact, I would say for a lot of people, it probably isn't the right way to go. I mean, obviously it worked out for you, but I do hear a lot of people ask about, hey, should I go get a master's in finance? And I think, one thing you brought up that's a really good point is like, you can do a master's in finance, and banks do recruit from some master's in finance programs, but you really got to do your due diligence before you decide to go to a school, because now, like most master's in finance programs do not place well into banking, right? If you're gonna go do it, if you're gonna spend $75,000 to $100,000 to go to like a master's in finance for a year, you gotta look up their graduation career statistics and things like that. They release reports like that where they talk about how many students they send into banking each year and which banks actually recruit from that school and things like that, right? And if it's not like a good program, or they don't have a track record of placing people into investment banks, then you're just wasting your time and money.
Oh, for sure. One of my best friends, he actually went to Villanova for their master in finance after working in equity research for a couple of years. He graduated with a 4.0, number one in his class, CFA charter holder, and he had interviews with BMO, SunTrust, a couple other leading middle market firms, and he told me he got smeared across the floor. And got laughed out of the room out of all of them, even though he was a CFA charter holder and had a 4.0. And the best offer that he got, which was the only investment banking offer, was at Janney Montgomery Scott. And, you know, it was making with the bonus just under 100,000. And, you know, I'm going to be working at a boutique where I'm actually going to make just over six figures my first year, with the opportunity to make even more if I perform well. So, and that Villanova program, that's a top 10 program. He did his due diligence, and even still, you know, he just didn't network really, and just sent out applications. And, you know, he networked a little bit, and that's how he got those few interviews, but he just didn't network enough to give himself enough opportunities to be able to understand, you know, how to be successful in the interviews.
Yeah. Man, he should have saved all that money and just came and worked with me instead. I'm just kidding.
I wish I knew about you before he started that program a little over a year ago. I would have told him to skip the program altogether. He would have saved a lot of money.
Yeah. All right. So then you graduated from the accounting program, or the master's in accounting. You started working at KPMG in the September of 2018. But then you quickly realized that audit is not for you, especially compared to finance, which is kind of like the first thing that you were really truly interested in. But so you kind of felt like you were settling a little bit for something that's not really what you want to do for the rest of your career, basically.
Oh yes, for sure.
So like,
absolutely.
So like, can you take us back to like, you know, like your first year at KPMG, you know, like mentally and emotionally, like where were you back then? Like, how were you feeling on a daily basis?
Oh man, it was bad. You know, I'm in Miami. My home office was KPMG Miami office. You know, they told me I would never have to drive past Fort Lauderdale, which is, you know, an hour drive just about in the morning. And, you know, my first client they put me on was in West Palm Beach, which was taking over 2 hours in the morning to get to, and then an hour and a half at night. And, you know, I got a flat tire on the side of the highway, $350 for a tow truck. I mean, I was just mentally drained. I mean, you know, physically and mentally drained. You know, I was working the banking hours, you know, making, you know, very little money, doing boring, monotonous work, and having to drive very, very far. You know, they would call up last second saying that there was an inventory count on Friday at 11 p.m. or Sunday at, you know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and they would give me a day or two notice and just expect that I had no plans.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a really bad experience in terms of, you know, what I expected it to be versus what it actually was. You know, I certainly learned a lot while I was there.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the stuff that I learned while I was there helped me to, you know, get the banking job. But that was pure coincidence almost. The reason why I stopped having to drive 2 hours is because after 2 weeks, a girl quit. And then they put me on a large public engagement in Miami. And that large public engagement, they did a valuation in 2018. And, you know, I raised my hand to work on pretty much anything related to that valuation, so I could get some valuation experience on my resume for stuff that I did while at KPMG.
Yeah.
And then, you know, added that stuff to my resume and tweaked it with your help. And, you know, from there, just practiced speaking about it and, you know, doing the mock interviews with you to really solidify, you know, what I did and how I did it, so that by the time I got to the banking interview and they said, you know, walk me through it step by step, I was ready to do that and did it successfully.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, like the hours and the lifestyle that you're describing, a lot of times that's a knock against banking. And, you know, even even when you're making six figures in banking, it's still not enjoyable, right? Let's not kid ourselves. But
Right.
I think you said you're gonna double your salary, I think is what I heard. So, which sounds about right to me because most auditors right out of school are probably making like 50, 60K at most, right? Uh,
Yes, pretty much.
yeah. So to be making 50, 60K uh, and working banking hours and doing stuff that you have absolutely no interest in. I mean, I can't really imagine. I can't really imagine being, much more miserable than having to do that.
Oh yeah, it was demoralizing. Just thinking, how many years of school I went through to do a job that I hate, working till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning for months on end, Saturdays, Sundays. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just mentally draining, and I just it was really starting to affect me, and I couldn't sleep. I was just super stressed out all the time. My mood was not good, and I'm a very positive, upbeat person, but when you get put in a position like that, it can really bring you down.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, like you and I, we've both been working. I mean, I've been working for much longer than you have, but you've at least been in the real world at this point. And I think a lot of times when I talk to college students, one thing that they don't realize when they're thinking about their career is just because they've never worked before, um,
Right.
they don't realize how much your career affects your happiness, right? Like whether if your career is fulfilling versus not, like that's like the thing that you spend the most time on every single day, right?
Yep.
And if you're doing something that you're not excited about, or you're not doing something you love, or you're not feeling fulfilled, whether that's from like a compensation perspective or a status perspective or whatever it may be that's important to you, um, it just sucks the life out of you, right?
It
And
does.
it's a miserable way to live. And so it's like sometimes I feel like people don't understand just how important it is to really get this stuff right, because it then trickles down into like all other aspects or all the other areas in your life, right? Like it affects your relationship with your girlfriend or wife or whatever, your partner, right? It affects your relationship with your friends, your family. It's just like it's all consuming, really.
It really is, because I mean, you spend 70, 80, 90 hours working, and then you can't complain while you're at work. You have to put on your smiley face and pretend like everything's okay and be positive and upbeat. And when it's a job that you hate, then you get home and the first thing you do is complain. So it winds up being 24 hours a day that, you're upset, and you might be complaining to your significant other and your friends, and, they don't want to hear it. But you can't complain at work. And so it winds up just being like a never ending vicious cycle where you're just so unhappy and you just don't know what to do about it.
Right, right. Yeah, man. So yeah, that's like, yeah, I hope people understand that. Like for those of you who are listening, it's like this is no joke, like I can think of few things that are more important than your career. I mean, I was talking like finding the love of your life, that's top of the list. And then having good health is right up there as well. And then I would say, then pretty much your career, so you got you have those three things in a good spot, you're gonna have a pretty great life, so okay, cool. And then let's see, let's keep going. So then originally I think your plan was to do like 2 years of audit and 2 years of advisory at KPMG, which is a bit closer to banking in terms of the nature of the work. And you've also seen people switch over from banking or to banking from the advisory side of the big four.
Right.
And then after that, you would maybe go get your MBA for 2 years and then switch into banking or something like that, right?
Pretty much.
But then you decided against doing that, right?
Yes.
Why is that? Was that just a matter of like wanting to do it sooner? Like,
So, I basically just networked with a couple folks in the KPMG deal advisory practice, which is KPMG's M&A practice in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And, I kind of was just speaking with them, and, they told me that, it would take at least 2 years to get into the deal advisory, and then at least 1 year of experience there, to then move over to banking. But they said that, if I worked really hard and learned all the technicals and networked right now, they said I could just skip that altogether and just break into banking, before, finishing 12 months on the job. And as soon as I heard that it was a possibility, I started looking up people on LinkedIn, and I found a handful of people that, went from a Big Four audit position to an investment banking analyst role. And just those few people, 3 or 4 people, I mean, that gave me hope that there was a possibility, but I knew that I needed some assistance to get there.
Got it. Okay. So you started at KPMG in September, I believe?
Yep.
And then I think you came to me in like late October of 2018. So how did you find me, by the way?
Probably by the grace of God, just scrolling through Facebook, I just saw this Wall Street mastermind group and joined, and then started, poking around the page, looking a little bit, looking at the templates and some of the stuff that's free on there.
Yeah.
And, then some of the success stories. And then, I had, I think it was like the day actually that I got the flat tire on the way home from work. I think I scheduled the strategy session to call you that night.
Yeah. You're like, F this, I'm done with this. I need to do something about this. And
yeah, immediately. I was like, oh, maybe I'm just going to wait a couple more months, and then that happened, and I was just like, I'm done.
That was God telling you, giving you a little push to do something about it, huh?
He really did, and that's exactly how I got the courage to call you and get some help.
That's hilarious, man. Well, I guess I'm glad you got that flat tire then. No, I'm just kidding. But look, and just shameless plug right now. But for the rest of you, I always encourage you guys to book that call with me. And if you're hesitating, this just goes to show you got to book that call. We can maybe change your life. But coming back to this though, so I think at the time when we first started talking, I was trying to understand like, okay, trying to figure out if I actually can help you or not, because I talk to a lot of people and I can't help everyone, right?
Right.
Someone like you who, is not a typical candidate where you're coming out of college or a business school, I know it's even harder, right? And so at the time, I think I asked you like, hey, like what resources have you already used up to that point to prepare? And I think you had, taken 2 financial modeling courses in college, but that was about it. And you were definitely pretty rusty at the time, I think. And then
yep.
You also said that you had heard the Wall Street Oasis modeling course could be pretty beneficial. So like, obviously there's a lot of resources out there, right, that you could have gone with. Like, what made you decide to work with me as opposed to just doing something like that? Like maybe taking a financial modeling course or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. So basically, after talking with the people in the deal advisory group, they said that, my technicals needed to be extremely sound, and I also needed to network really, really hard if I wanted to break into banking within my first year. And, I probably could have learned the technicals from one of these online courses, but I wasn't going to get that attention on my cover letter, my LinkedIn profile, how to network effectively, how to automate some of my networking efforts, because this is a numbers game. With your help and using some of the software tools, I reached out to like almost 2,500 people on LinkedIn. 700 or 800 of those people accepted me. I set up maybe 75 or 80 calls. I got a handful of interviews and then ended up with 2 offers. So, I mean, you're talking, 2 offers out of over 2,000 LinkedIn requests.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what you got to do coming from this type of position.
I freaking love it, man. I hope you guys heard that, which is, and by the way, I think Brandon went to the extreme end to make this happen. And obviously because, he had more to overcome, for someone that's, maybe still in school and college or coming out of an MBA program, a top MBA program, probably don't have to go that crazy with the networking, but still, it's still a numbers game, right? Like you said, you message whatever, reach out to 2,500 people. Like even my clients who are still in school, you got to reach out to hundreds of people, right? Because at the end of the day, like that's how competitive it is, right? And if you don't know how to do that in an efficient manner, like that's all you're going to be doing, right? And
Yep.
you don't have time for anything else, right? And I think the other point that you brought up, which is really true, is that a lot of the resources that people have out there right now, they just focus on like one aspect of recruiting, right? And most of the time, usually it's like, oh, on the technical interview, right? Which is like important, but it doesn't really, technical interview won't really matter if you can't get the interview.
Right.
Right. And so the way that, we try to help clients get results is to make sure it's a more holistic approach of helping you do everything you need to do to get the interview in the first place, and then also doing everything we can to help you with the interview, right? So okay, so that was the biggest difference, which is just like for you wanted something that was more holistic, it sounds like.
Exactly. And
Okay.
I just wanted something where I would have access to talk with somebody who has done all the things that I want to do before, and
Yeah.
having that direct connection to be able to message you at any time of the day and get a fast response, and be able to set up mock interviews and phone calls and whatever you need to be successful. That's what I needed. I needed that personalized one-on-one attention from somebody who's done this before. I just didn't want to take the word of some random website that they could get me results. I wanted somebody who has literally worked on the job before and done all the things that I want to do.
Yeah. And then like immediately after you enrolled in my program, again, that was like late October, I think, you started getting completely slammed at work, right? Is that right?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
I remember us planning out, when we thought was going to be busy season for you and when you were going to be able to do a lot of the work for recruiting. But then in the end, honestly, at least to me, you correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it felt like you were just perpetually in busy season the entire time. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, like, and when I was telling you what I was told during the recruiting process, which was January, February, and a couple of weeks of March were going to suck. I was going to be working 6-7 days a week till 12, 1, 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
But, come November, like I was already working till 10, 10:30, December, same thing. It was already getting a little worse, maybe 11, 11:30. And, then January, February, March hit, and it was just a shit show all over again, 7 days a week, literally, over 75, 80, 85 hours a week. And it just kept ramping up. Every month was just getting worse and worse. And I just never thought that it was going to end. And then I, took off 2 months to pass the CPA exam. So I was able to take a sabbatical off of work, all of April and May. And, the second I got on that sabbatical, I just went ballistic with the networking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, look, I asked this because, I kind of laugh because a lot of times when people ask me about my program, they're like, well, like, am I going to have time to do this? Because, I'm in school right now and I'm really busy. And I'm just like, dude, I mean, shit, if Brandon could do it, working 85 hours a week, I don't want to hear any excuse from anyone that they can't do this. Right? Like, if anything, I would say that's even more reason to get help from someone like me, because the way I think about it is always like, and you can attest to this, which is like our approach is not, hey, let's overwhelm you with a bunch of stuff and just so you feel like you're getting a lot of value because we're giving you so much stuff to memorize or so much work to do. Like our approach is the opposite, right? We want to just do the absolute minimum And it was like, we're only going to do the things that you have to do to get the job and nothing more, right? And in
Right.
fact, we're going to help you do those things better. We're going to help you do those things faster and more efficiently, right?
For sure.
And so if anything, doing it with me is supposed to save you time, not this is not like incremental work on top of what you already would have had to do in the first place.
Oh yeah, my friend, who was in the Villanova Master of Finance program, when I told him that I wanted to break into banking, he sent me, I want to say 300 or 400 typed out pages of all kinds of stuff, and it was just ridiculous. I was like, what? I'm supposed to memorize all this? And this was before I reached out to you and before I completed all the work in your program. And all the work in your program, I typed out all my notes, highlighted, bolded all the stuff that I needed to. It was probably 20% of what he had given me, but it was 2 or 3 or 4 times more valuable because everything was easy to understand. It was laid out in the correct order of how you're supposed to memorize it and understand it, because you need to understand one thing before you can understand another thing, and that's just the way that it goes. To be able to understand the intermediate and the advanced stuff, you need to understand the basics. So the program is laid out in a way that it sets you up to be successful that way.
Yeah, man. I always the analogy I use is like it's like a recipe, right? Like you're trying to bake something. You can have all the right ingredients, but if you don't put in the ingredients in the right order and the right sequence, you're not gonna have a cake that comes out, looking very good, right?
No.
Very good. And so the order matters, and having someone just lay out everything for you, the step by step, like all you gotta do is be good at following instructions and executing that. Like that's, I'm not saying it makes it easy. Like getting into banking is never going to be easy, but it makes it simple, right? And at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for is for someone to simplify all this for you so that you're not overwhelmed by all this conflicting information out there and you don't know like what's good information and what's garbage information, right?
Yep.
Cool, man. So if you could say, I mean, if it was like the three biggest things that we helped you with in this program, like at a high level, what would you say those 3 things are?
I would say, number one was getting my house in order in terms of my resume, my cover letter, and my LinkedIn profile, because those 3 things, really matter when you're pushing out your resume.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be, how to network effectively and how to automate some of those efforts. Because I definitely would never have been able to reach out to 2,500 people in a couple weeks if it wasn't for, the guidance and that you gave and, some of the software tools and things like that. And, number 3, having the behavioral and the technical information in front of me to study, and then having the resource to do mock interviews and test me on what I had been studying for a few months. Those would be the 3 things that ultimately are the reason why I got the offer. Just the studying alone of the materials, it would have been close to enough, but, using you to do the mock interviews, you really drilled down even harder, into the resume and into some of the things that, you said that you did or that I said that I did on my resume. And, those are some of the things that were some of the harder questions in the interview. And some of the behavioral questions you really dug into me on in our mock interviews. I mean, that's how I ultimately was able to be successful, because those questions certainly came up in the interview, and I wouldn't have been prepared with the right answer if we didn't do those mock interviews together.
Yep. Got it. Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I mean, those are pretty much like the main pillars of the program, right? It's like your application materials, they got to be on point. Your networking skills got to be top notch. And then your interviewing skills, both on the behavior and on the technical side, they got to be flawless, right? So those are pretty much the four pillars, right? And so
Yep.
I'm glad to hear that those are the exact things that you got out of it, because that should be how it works when people go through our program. So okay, so then you went on sabbatical, and then that's when you really started recruiting, right?
Yep.
So how long did it take for you to start landing interviews?
I landed an interview within 2 weeks,
Yep.
and I landed an offer within 4 weeks, and
Yep.
then another offer within 5 weeks. So, I received the two offers a week apart, and it was it really didn't take that long when you're putting out those types of numbers.
And honestly, you had even another super day. So you had three super days, right? You got two offers, and the third one is TBD, but they're being too slow, and
Yep.
so you're deciding to go with this other offer. But essentially, you're at a minimum 2 for 3, if not 3 for 3, essentially.
Yeah, essentially. Out of my office interviews, I got both the offers, and the third one is TBD because they just keep interviewing people, and they I guess had so many people lined up to do interviews with, and they're a small bank, so they don't want to make a decision on who to hire until they finish all the interviews, and
Yeah,
they're
you
just
have
taking
this
they're just
exploding
taking too long.
offer, right? Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I had an exploding offer, and this offer was local, so I wouldn't have to move. So I just decided to go with this one.
Yep. But it's good to have options. So that's awesome, that you got multiple offers and multiple interviews. Such a short amount of time too. Once you actually got past busy season and really had time to start proactively recruiting. So that's awesome. And like we already talked about earlier, you're basically probably going to be working similar hours in your new job, but you're going to be making twice as much money now, right? Or close to
Yep.
much. Okay. So
And they
how?
said this particular bank said really the weekend work is actually very minimal. So, longer hours during the week, but they don't like to really work on the weekends unless it's absolutely necessary. So this isn't as much like one of your leading middle markets or your bulge brackets where you probably will work your 6 or 7 days a week, but this will be longer hours during the week and, sometimes on the weekend.
That's actually even better. And I think I remember you telling me like your manager back in Audit was only making like 95K or something, right? And how many more years had he been working than you?
He had been working 5 more years than me, and now I'm making more than him.
Yeah, man. So that's how you accelerate your career trajectory, to be honest.
Yep.
So that's freaking phenomenal, and I'm super happy for you. What are you gonna do with all that extra money, man?
Save it and invest it and retire a rich man.
All right, you're responsible. I thought you were gonna say you're gonna go buy some nice car or something like that.
Oh, well, I did just buy a new car, but
Oh,
that was with previous money saved. My other car was dying, so I did buy myself a 535 BMW. I guess that was my present to myself. Got a used 2016 535. That was my present to myself for getting the job.
you deserve it, man. You're a banker now. You gotta look the part, right? So
Absolutely.
you can't be driving a freaking beater to your client meetings. So
Of course not, especially working for a car dealership investment bank. I gotta show up in a nice car.
that's fair. That's fair. You should ask them to reimburse that for you. It's just a work expense.
I'm gonna see what I can do, see if I can negotiate that.
Awesome, man. Any last minute advice for everyone that's listening to this interview?
Yeah, I mean, just don't hesitate to make the call. Whether you think you have time or you don't, you do have time, and it might take 3 to 6 months to see results, depending on how busy you are. If you're as busy as me, it could take 6 months, like it did. But if you can buckle down and get into it right away, you can make it happen in just 1 or 2 months. Because from the time I really got going and put my best foot forward, once I had the free time, it only did take 4 to 5 weeks to land offers. So you just got to make the decision and, make it happen.
Awesome, man. Well, look, guys, I think what we can all learn from Brandon is that, not all of us take the conventional path towards getting to investment banking sometimes, right? At the end of the day, the unfortunate truth is that the vast majority of you will not be able to break in straight out of undergrad, right? Like that's just, I'm not trying to be negative. Like that's just what the facts are statistically, right? And, maybe you had a lower GPA like Brandon did, or maybe you found out about banking too late in the game, which is very common with how accelerated recruiting happens nowadays. Or maybe, you didn't go to a target school, and that may not be because, you're not a hard worker, you're not a good student. A lot of people, go to non-target schools for financial reasons, right? But whatever it may be, and maybe you don't know how to network because nobody's ever taught you how to network and you never had to do this before. So maybe it's a combination of all of the above, right? But regardless of what the reason is, there's no need to let that stop you from pursuing your dream job. If this is your dream job, right? It's a lot of work. It's not worth pursuing if it's not your dream job. But if it is your dream job, and you have these obstacles that are in your way, and maybe you don't want to go back for an MBA because you can't afford to spend another $200,000 on school, or maybe because it takes too long. There are other ways to get your foot in the door, right? And Brandon is living proof of that. And the key is, if you're committed enough and you're truly willing to do whatever it takes, and you have the perseverance to keep going despite all the challenges and setbacks along the way, and then you can absolutely succeed, right? Now, just having that commitment and that perseverance, I would say that alone is not enough, right? Like you got to have the know-how, right? And you can't afford to trial and error and take your sweet time figuring it out. And like as a non-traditional candidate who's not in school, the longer you take, the harder it becomes for you to break into banking, right? Like Brandon did it within his first year out of school, and so that definitely helped, right? But if you waited too long, it could have been a very different outcome, right? And so really, what you got to do is optimize for speed and efficiency, right? And the way to do that, honestly, is to get the expert help that you need, right? And so that you're not figuring things out on your own as you go, and risking just making a bunch of mistakes along the way. And after all, like this could really be your last shot at ever breaking into banking. So if you feel like, hey, what I just said, is describing you right now, and you feel like the odds are stacked against you, but you're not ready to give up, reach out to me, right? And let's see if I can help you. Like I said, I can't help everybody, but you can book a strategy session with me. Tell me about the challenges you're having. Tell me about your situation, your circumstances, and I'll let you know. I'm very honest. I'll let you know if I can help you or not. And worst case scenario, if I can't help you, I won't pretend like I can, right? And but I'll still give you my best advice and tell you what I would do if I were in your situation. And that's worst case scenario, right? But if I can help you, then let's definitely get you the help that you need, right? So that you can change the trajectory of your career, so that you're not stuck going down a career path that you're not excited about for the next 20, 30, 40 years and just being completely miserable, okay? So if you want to book a call, what you can do is, you can go to wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. But the street and the URL is not spelled out. It's abbreviated to ST. So it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Okay. Brandon, thanks a lot for doing this interview today. Both
absolutely.
The listeners, I really appreciate your time. I know we probably went way over, but it was such a good, enjoyable conversation that I didn't want to stop. But best of luck at your new job. And I'm excited to see your growth professionally going forward, and keep me posted on how everything goes.
Oh, absolutely. I will definitely stay in contact, and you'll definitely hear about how everything's going over the next couple months and how things start to evolve, over the next year.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot for taking your time today.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, later. All right, guys, that'll be it for today, and thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll be back with more of these over the next couple of weeks and months. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.